In today's video, we're going to teach you how you can throw harder in softball by fixing some of your fielding technique stuff. So we're going to go over the concept of funneling, which is something that infielders should be doing on every ground ball that they square up to. And when we make these adjustments to our fielding mechanics, softball players are going to see a big gain in throwing velocity. They're going to see a gain in throwing accuracy because suddenly their mechanics are always going to start from a consistent point. And so this is something that's really, really underrated. So if you're familiar with my YouTube channel here, which I highly suggest you subscribe and share with a friend. If you're familiar with my work, you know I talk a lot about footwork and fielding, like the fundamentals of fielding being really important in improving your throwing mechanics if you're a fast pitch softball player. So if your fielding stuff is off, then that's the very first thing that I'm going to adjust if I were to work with you in person. And obviously I was the owner of a baseball softball academy for 9 years called Warbird Academy. And so this became very obvious to me over time. So in today's video, we're going to go over fielding mechanics, specifically the funneling action and how that's going to improve your softball throwing mechanics. Okay, so in today's video, we've got a lot of slow motion video of softball players. We've got slow motion infield technique, throwing technique, all that stuff. But the big concept today is funneling and how this affects your throwing, because it really, really does affect throwing, especially with young, fast-pitch softball players. So here's what funneling is. So when you scoop up a ground ball, shown right here, the next step should be, and this is for ground balls when you're squared to your target or when you're fielding it in the center of you, it should be bringing it to your center right here. And so you see this with softball players at a high level, and this is a Division I player here. You see it with baseball players at a high level. And bringing the ball to their center is something that's extremely common for really, really good players. They all do this. They all do it. But for young softball players, they routinely do not do this, and they grab the ball right out of their glove, and they immediately go into their throwing motion without bringing it to the center of their body. And so a good question is, well, why do we need to funnel the ball? Why does this matter? And so my example here is a football quarterback. So a football quarterback is going to have a lot of complex decisions to make as he drops back in the pocket looking for a receiver to throw to, right? And while he's doing that, he's going to keep the ball at his center the whole time. So you'd say, well, yeah, that seems obvious. That's the easiest place to put it, right? Exactly, it is, because when he is ready to throw, because he's not going to know which receiver is going to be open, when he is ready to throw, no matter what direction he's going to throw the ball, it's going to start from the same place every time, so his throwing mechanics are going to be consistent. And so you see the same thing with infielders. Once they get the ball and they fielded it, they're going to bring it to their middle because it's now in a consistent place where their throwing mechanics can start and end from the same spot every time. Because if we want to get from this point here to here, making a really strong throw across the diamond, it's going to start with the fundamentals just like anything else. So let's go through some slow motion examples here. Here we've got a softball infielder, and she's going to approach this ball, and you see how her right foot's behind, her left foot's moving through it. She gets it, and she's bringing it right to her center, and then she can collect herself and take her time or not, and depending on how fast the runner is and what the situation is, and then make her throw. So really good example of funneling the ball well here. In this next video, you're going to see 3 pro baseball infielders, and what I want you to really watch for is the way as soon as the ball hits their mitt, it immediately goes to their belt buckle. And these are all players that are at an extremely high level, and they've been taught this for their entire careers from when they're little players. So this is like an automatic action where you'll see as soon as it hits the glove, it's kind of exaggerated, and they just bring it right to their belt line, right there. See that? So exaggerated right to the belt line. And then the shortstop's last, right to the belt line. So this is consistent across all high-level players, but as I go out and watch young softball players play, and when we do a lesson and we're evaluating them for the first time, we rarely see that. We rarely see it because basically they'll take the ball right from here and go into the throwing motion, and what happens is they become very inconsistent, and their throwing motion gets just really strange because it's always starting from a new place. We want our throwing mechanics to always start from the same place. So as you watch this player here, brings it right to her center, right foot's gonna hit, Now she separates her hands, and everything looks easy, right? It's just a simple motion. She's going to throw it sidearm, but again, it starts and stops with the fundamentals. Here's another good example. It's a shortstop. She gets it right to her middle as her feet start to move. And the best infielders, this is a seamless transition, right? There's not a lot of gap between when it hits the glove and when they start moving. So they're moving their feet as it hits the glove, as they're bringing it to the middle. It's not in one, then two, then three. It's not in pieces. It's one smooth motion. And here is a pro baseball shortstop, and he's going to look exactly the same as our previous example. So as that ball comes in, it hits his mitt, and then the first thing that happens is it goes to his center. So for softball players who want to throw harder, for softball players who don't throw with enough accuracy, maybe they're inconsistent, this is probably a problem that they have. Now, there's no way to tell exactly, but inconsistency in the starting point of your throwing mechanics is going to yield inconsistency in everything else, right? So again, that's why the fundamentals, this is like the tires on a car. These are the really important basics to focus on. So it hits the glove, brings it to her middle as her feet step, and then her throwing motion begins from the same spot every time on those routine kind of ground balls. So, okay, so what do we do? How can we improve on this? If you're a coach or if you're a softball parent or if you're a player and you want to go out and practice, what should we do? Well, number one, use video. So obviously these photos were taken from games. This was slow motion video taken from games. Everyone has a smartphone these days, right? So go out, take some video, use your iPhone, use your Android phone. If you want to invest in a cheap, Sony or Canon or Nikon camera and get some a little more close-up shots with the zoom lens, all for it. All those things can make a really big impact on a softball player's career, and so having good analysis, a good starting point is important. Number two, dailies. So dailies refer to like daily routine drills. This is like the fundamental stuff that players will just sort of do all the time. And so this is a great example of some Division I players doing their daily drills. So this is before a game. They're just on their knees working on the basics, funneling, picking balls, backhanding balls, stuff like that. This should be a consistent thing, and this is a consistent thing for all high-level players. If you're a high-level fast-pitch player, if you're a pro baseball player, a college baseball player, even high school players at good programs that are well-coached and well-run, these are things that players do all the time. This is just like hitting off the tee for fielders. So this stuff is really important. So if you're a softball player who wants to improve her throwing, improve her fielding, make less errors, this is stuff that you need to do every day. These are, commonly referred to as dailies. Lastly, make sure you're getting game-like reps. So this means when you are taking batting practice or you're just taking ground balls at your team, even if you can't throw it, make sure you're getting quality work in and going through your game speed mechanics. So here's a great example of that. This is a baseball guy in pregame, in batting practice, and he's not going to throw it, but he's still going to attack the ball. He's still going to field it like he would in a game, like he would if he was going to throw it across the diamond. So he's breaking down, making sure that he's getting really good quality practice and making himself better. So if you're lazy in practice, you're going to be lazy in games, and that applies to every sport and every endeavor in life. But again, right here you see he funnels it, he moves his feet, he's working on being smooth, he's working on his hands, and he's just getting his feet into a strong throwing position, but then he's not actually going to throw it. So even if it's not a practice where you can make 100 throws across the diamond, you can still encourage players to go through their reps with game speed and really just work hard on being better. Okay, so hopefully today's video helped. Obviously, when you can break down mechanics in slow motion and see what high level players are doing, it just makes everything way easier, right? I would rather show you what good players do, and then we can talk through it rather than just me be that sort of talking head that says, always do it this way, do it this way, do it this way. When you see the players that you want to be playing at the level that you want to play at, when you see them consistently doing these actions, which again, you see all these D1 softball players funneling the ball every time they're squared up to one, and you see college and pro baseball players doing it too, you should know that as a coach, this is something that your young players need to learn. And if you're a young softball player yourself, this is something that you really need to spend a lot of time on. So if you're new to the channel, please subscribe, hit the like button, share with a friend, and I'll see you in the next video.